A lot has been written about waste and how it impacts on the performance of your initiatives. In fact, waste is the main reason for project failure. Today we want to explore some of the reasons for waste in projects and also to look at how concepts such as Moscow and MVP have been used to reduce waste. We'll also assert that these concepts are very different from each other, that MVP is not the M in Moscow.
My name is John Stathakis, and I am an independent contractor. Yuri Timmermans and I have delivered many projects to a wide range of organisations in the last 15 years. We have learned lessons the hard way and will hopefully make your path easier through our material. The topics in this video may seem fundamental to seasoned agilists, but it's sometimes important to get back to basics to create a firm baseline.
I am Yuri Timmermans, CEO and founder of Big Jump, and I'm passionate about helping people and organisations to become more agile and innovative through the implementation of the right initiatives. Over the past 10 years, we've learned that initiatives that are complex and innovative follow a different implementation pattern than other initiatives, and therefore an alternative approach is required to deliver the business value. Today, we're going to be sharing some of those learnings and those patterns with you. This session's agenda will include 2 exercises. The first will be on Moscow, the prioritization method, and the second will be on MVP, minimal viable product. We will discuss how to use these techniques in complex projects so it can address the challenges that are often faced.
In our first exercise, imagine that you have just bought this house near the sea and would like to rent it out for short periods at a time. Your objective is to get the best rental price possible. You've had a quick look inside, so you know the condition of the house. Imagine what the bathrooms, bedrooms, the kitchens, and the gardens look like. You'll need a pen, a pack of post-it notes, and a table for this activity. You have $75,000 to fix up the place. The exercise is to write down all of the things that you can do or buy to maximize the rental value of the house. Write each idea on a separate post-it and arrange them on your table.
To give you enough time to complete the activity, stop the video. When you are finished, start the video again to continue.
Look at all the cards that are laid out on your table. Can you complete these for your budget of $75,000? Many projects stop at this point. What they do is take all of the cards and write them up as the scope of the project, and then give them to a vendor to deliver within the cost and the time. But this approach is of course very risky for a number of reasons. What happens if tasks take longer than you'd expected? What happens if you run out of money? What happens if there's an event that causes you to need to change your plan and do something different? Moscow was developed as part of DSDM, or Dynamic Systems Development Method, which is an agile approach to address these risks.
We will now look at using the Moscow method as a prioritization technique used in management, business analysis, and software development to reach a common understanding with stakeholders on the importance they place on the delivery of each requirement. How to use Moscow method. First of all, Moscow is an acronym where the letters M, S, C, and W have a specific meaning. The M stands for must have and represents all the requirements that have been deemed by the key stakeholders as absolutely critical for the product to be successful. These are considered as non-negotiables. The requirements that are considered important but are not critical for the current release of the product are grouped in the should have category. The third category in Moscow is the could have category. This category contains all the requirements that are desirable, but not necessarily for the product to be successful. They are included if time permits. The fourth and last category is the won't have yet. This grouping contains the requirements regarded by the stakeholders as the least critical and are considered as nice to haves. These requirements generally have a higher cost and a lower business value than all the other categories.
Coming back to the exercise, have a look at the cards on your table. Can you arrange them into the categories that Yuri has just described? Identify the must-haves, should-haves, could-haves, and won't-have now. Did you notice any difference? Can you see how powerful it is to focus on the most important items first? How much more likely are you to achieve your target if something goes wrong, or if something takes longer than expected? So why are complex projects so expensive? The reason is waste. And waste is caused by many things. Misaligned stakeholders, an incapable team, lack of vision, and other reasons. Risk associated with most of these is significantly reduced through the use of MVP. But the one I want to focus on today is the quest for certainty. In order to allocate budgets, management needs to know what they'll get for their money. It's like going to the supermarket and picking up a bottle of milk off the shelves. You pay the $2.50 and you get your bottle. You know what you're getting. And one of the main thrusts of traditional project management is to commoditize complex projects in the same way. Complex projects encounter significant surprises. The crystal ball is broken, folks. Markets change along with business priority. Stakeholders change, and the technology has surprises, and so on. To accommodate this, project managers and ICT management significantly pad their estimates to accommodate uncertainty. It's still possible to provide a good prediction to the outcome, but you have a choice to make. The traditional approach to getting this illusion of certainty is through detailed upfront planning. Agile projects take a different approach. Build a robust vehicle to take you there and then measure its velocity on the journey. If you were planning a trip to Sydney, would it be more useful to have a good car or to know in advance where and what you'll be having for breakfast on the second day? The traditional approach leads to over-specification. Managers are told that they have only one shot at the budget because it won't be allocated again to this initiative for another 5 years. So all business needs need to be covered. This causes fear of missing out, or FOMO, which means that a lot of features are included and regarded as critical that may never be used. Who can tell what will be needed in the next 5 years? All bases need to be covered. The belief that detail reduces risk results in specifications that are far too prescriptive, and assumptions are made on the basis of SME opinion, as there is no working product to validate these assumptions against. How many times has a project delivered with only a percentage of the screens and reports being used? Another side effect is that the requirements are costly and take a long time to produce. This reduces the ability to quickly change them later. This leads to significantly higher vendor cost. Vendors want the work, so they don't want to put non-compliant against any requirements that they don't have to, even if the way the business analysts specified the requirement degrades the well-thought-out approach by the industry specialists on their teams. This may result in them needing to hobble their products, to contort them to fit the over-specified BRS. This may even involve unnecessary customization. How many times have you heard the phrase, "Your company's requirements are so unique that we can't meet all of the features out of the box"? The cost of customization far exceeds the cost of the initial outlay, because you have to carry that cost again and again every time you do an upgrade. It's no longer as simple as downloading and applying the update. Now your upgrades take months and sometimes years. Of course, vendors know this. and are often willing to take the hit on the initial installation, knowing you'll need to engage them for the upgrades. All of this makes it expensive to change direction whilst the project is in flight. So the projects are geared around limiting the amount of change. So how does this happen? One example is that user testing is delayed. When users see the product, they always want something different. So putting the user testing at the end means that there's only time and resources to confirm that the solution meets the spec, not that the solution is fit for purpose. I've even been advised to script user testing so that users don't have the opportunity to be disruptive. And of course, there is no product to test against until the end, so assumptions are not validated until close to delivery when it is too late to do anything about it. Another side effect is that budget compliance is rewarded. Project managers are expected to deliver against their budgets, so there is incentive to pad the initial estimates. It's always easier to spend more money than to ask for more. I've heard that the rule of thumb is 4 times the estimates provided by the technical teams. That is not to say that good projects don't deliver on time and budget, but that it's more valuable to go along the journey with business management, accommodating their changing needs as you go. Deliver on time and budget, but deliver on the emerging scope. The end result of the traditional approach is a big bang delivery. You get all of your requirements all at once at the end, which creates a huge change shock for your users, and of course, they have lost all of the benefit of using the product before that time. The result of all of this is that only some important needs are met, despite the high cost of delivery and maintenance. The gulf of expectation is enormous because what was expected to be delivered is very different to what they are getting. This starts the blame game, which is almost always the business fault, because they should have asked for different things during the requirements gathering process. There are many examples of this in practice. The Qantas JetSmart project, for example, where the end users refused to use the product as it was not fit for purpose, resulting in a cost of $40 million to develop a new system. The waste is enormous and so easily avoidable. Although Moscow is a good step forward towards addressing this by focusing on what is important right now and then delivering the rest later, it is often misapplied. Businesses produce the full business requirement specification to be able to distinguish between the different categories. When the business sees the large cost of the solution, they may ask, how much will it cost to do the M's only? This often becomes the primary scope of the project, especially since the cost of the M requirements have been padded for the reasons covered before. The result of this is this business get their M's in a couple of years' time as a big bang. All of this could have been avoided if the MVP approach is used. MVP is not the M in Moscow, as you shall see in the next exercise.
We will now look at how a minimal viable product, also known as MVP, can be used to make sure we deliver what customers really want. But before we do that, let's look at the definition of MVP. MVP is that version of a new product which allows a team to collect the maximum amount of validated learning about their customers with the least amount of effort. This means that MVP needs to be released to real customers to gather evidence either validating or invalidating the assumptions made that led to that version of the product in the first place.
For exercise 2, we are going to build on what we had for exercise 1. You've just started on your Byron Bay house when you get a call from a rental agent. She has guests every 3 weeks that would like to stay for a week each time. They can be young partygoers, romantic couples, young families, or elderly couples. You need to accommodate all guests to keep your reputation with the agent, and of course, you want them to write a good review. What can you do in the next 2 weeks before the first guests arrive? The first guest will be a young family. Think about the activities and purchases you identified earlier. What changes can you make in the next 2 weeks that will allow you to learn as much as possible about your customers and receive the best possible review? Think about the assumptions that you are making and what would allow you to validate these assumptions. Use your pen and sticky notes to put these items on your table. To give you enough time to complete the activity, stop the video. When you are finished, start the video again to continue.
Have a look at all the cards you put down and compare this with exercise 1. Do you notice any differences? If so, why were they different? What assumptions were made for the items on the list? Which were the most critical assumptions? Which items provided learnings on the assumptions? This is an example of the types of items.
We spoke earlier about how complex projects are often very expensive. We explored waste as the cause and provided one practical scenario as to how waste can occur. We'll now look at how MVP addresses these areas and provides an antidote. In the quest for certainty, agile projects acknowledge the triple constraints of cost, scope, and time, but focus more heavily on controlling the time and cost, whilst allowing the scope to be much more emergent. This allows for a closer alignment to changing business needs. Focus on building a capability and approach that can weather changes as they occur, rather than doing detailed business requirements and planning for the longer term. Don't ignore the longer term, but focus on key dependencies that require short-term action. To reduce waste, don't give too much credence to unvalidated assumptions. At best, they are bad guesses. Instead, delay any decisions that will not have an impact on the immediate delivery. The advantage of short-term delivery, possibly a week or two out, is that the details are top of mind, especially if the team is co-located, virtually or otherwise, so the specifications can be much more lightweight. This allows the energy to be available to document the as-built reference model after the items are constructed, a much better and safer use of this time. Feedback from the production use of the increment can validate any assumptions and steer the ship in the right direction. Don't select your vendors based on their compliance to the functional spec, but rather select them based on capability. Agile contracts allow for vendors to be stronger partners and change direction quickly by allowing for a flexible scope. Stage the contracts in such a way that early iterations can include experiments that validate that the vendor's product can deliver the riskiest items on the project before the investment is too high. Embrace change. All of these things reduce the cost of change, so change becomes an ally of the project, not something to be avoided. You can welcome any changes that would provide better business value and allow you to realign. Note that the cost of delivering the wrong thing is generally not measured, so changes that help deliver the right impact should be celebrated, especially if pivoting is required, because it saved you from a bad outcome. Because you are delivering solutions to production every couple of weeks, there is no need for a big bang delivery. This means that the change shock for users is not there, just a smooth introduction of a stream of features that make their lives easier, at a pace they can absorb. Since materials associated with deployment, such as training manuals, are produced incrementally as the solutions are deployed, the effort to do so is reduced and is likely to be of higher quality. The business is able to start capitalizing on benefits almost from the beginning, so return on investment is also maximized. As you have applied validated learning to your iterations, your product is now much more closely aligned to the customer needs, thus reducing the gulf of expectation. The business becomes your champion and not your adversary. So far we've spoken about the reduction of waste through MVP as a product increment. But in the next section, we'll talk about how we can use MVP in a much broader sense, as described in Eric Ries's book called The Lean Startup.
Validated learning is not just possible through a product increment, which is building something towards your end product and letting your customers and users create metrics that you can analyze. Testing specific assumptions by putting in place experiments to gain insights in the desirability, feasibility, viability, and adaptability of your product so that you can improve its value for your customers. Examples of these types of experiments are creating a landing page to test the product, do some A/B testing on different versions, and there's a Wizard of Oz experiment as well. This experiment is named after the character in the movie, where the service is provided and functional to the customers, but the process in the background is all performed manually. Shortly we will show you an example of this in our next video clip with Seinfeld, where there's a Wizard of Oz experiment conducted. Note that the Wizard of Oz and other experiments do not have to be a product increment. The experiment can be very different with a very different learning goal and different metrics that you capture. Small bets, fail fast, learn quickly through experimentation to provide direction on when to pivot, persevere, or pause. Have a look at the Seinfeld clip and see the Wizard of Oz experiment in action.
Hello, and welcome to Movie Phone. If you know the name of the movie you'd like to see, press 1.
Come on.
Using your touch-tone keypad, please enter the first 3 letters of the movie title now. You've selected Agent Zero. If that's correct, press 1.
What?
You've selected Brown-Eyed Girl. If this is correct, press 1. Why don't you just tell me the name of the movie you selected?
Channel?
To find the theater nearest you, please enter your 5-digit zip code now. Why don't you just tell me where you want to see the movie?
Lowe's Paragon, 84th and Broadway?
Channel is playing at the Paragon 84th Street Cinema in the main theater at 9:30 p.m.
Yeah, now I got you.
It's also playing in theater number 2 at 9 o'clock.
Hopefully the session today has given you a taste of MVP and an insight into the types of improvements that could be made to your way of working that allows you to reduce waste and maximize value. Message us if you have any thoughts on MVP at the addresses listed on the screen. We'd also like to extend a big thank you to Beck Norton, who produced most of the pictures that you've seen in the presentation today. Beck is a great visual facilitator and solution design consultant, and I urge you to reach out to her if you have a need in that area.